Who's afraid of a little communism? I want to share with you something sent over to me. Actually, it comes from Students for Liberty. Talks about Ayn Rand and how family escaped from Soviet Russia while she's watching a society destroy itself. And she identified 5 patterns that signal a civilization is circling the toilet. And guess what? We're watching them. First, pattern number 1. Producers serve non-producers. When the people who create value, entrepreneurs, builders, innovators, must beg permission from bureaucrats who create nothing, you have inverted the natural order. Merit becomes a privilege granted by those who never earned it. Think about all those nonsensical permits and documents and crap you got to get. You got to get a license to be an interior decorator. You got to remember this. When I had a temporary office for a period of time, and this was actually in Florida. This is going back to like 2015. I remember we were in the process of moving, and I had rented a temporary office in Sarasota. And the office is like, well, you got to make sure you go down to the, Sarasota County to get a business license. And I said, no, let them sell the Gestapo after me. I'm not getting a license to feed my family. Anyway, again, number 2, wealth comes from connections, not contribution. Success stops depending on what value did create and starts depending on who do you know. Lobbying becomes more profitable than innovation. Subsidies beat competition. Favors trump products. Sound familiar? Laws protect the influential, not the industrious. Justice becomes a luxury. The powerful get different rules than everyone else. Insider trading is illegal unless you're in Congress. You get bailouts from the go. You end up becoming too big to fail. You end up having regulatory capture. Corruption pays better than creation. When stealing, manipulating, and exploiting connections is more lucrative than honest work, you've created the perfect incentives for collapse. Why build when you can lobby? Why compete when you can regulate competitors away? Integrity becomes self-sacrifice. When being honest costs you, socially, financially, professionally, and compromising your values gets rewarded, honesty transforms into an act of heroism. And we've been there for a very long period of time. Thinking about these things because we've talked about them at length here on the program over the years. And my concern, and I've said it on plenty of occasions, and I get some blowback. I said, we haven't been a capitalist country for some time. And you even take a look at the things, and most recent president, Donald Trump is engaged in with government taking equity stakes in various different companies. That, my friends, that's not capitalism by any stretch of the imagination. I've lamented against public-private partnerships and various different favors and deals and contracts being given out to, whether it be the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act under Obama, whether it be the Inflation Reduction Act, doesn't make any difference. It's all nonsense. It's all garbage. CHIPS Act, you name it. None of this helps you. It helps the well-connected. George W. Bush starting the bailouts of the automakers. We can go right on down the list. There was and I've talked about this before, former FBI special agent, his name was Cleon Skousen, devoted anti-communist, and he wrote the book The Naked Communist in 1958. And he added a list to the book entitled The 45 Communist Goals for America. And this was actually read it into Congress, if I'm not mistaken, back in the late or early 1960s. Yes, here it is. Congressman Albert Herlong of Florida, January 10th, 1963. Some of them I'll go through. Develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. Permit free trade with all nations, regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. Now, some say, well, Chris, you're against tariffs and all this stuff. Hold on. Okay. I'm not against holding back various different technologies for countries that where we see fit and it's not, shouldn't be done. Again, we can go back in time. And again, I was ripping this at the time. You had Loral Space. Loral Space, this was during the Clinton administration, was selling all of this space and missile technology to China. Yeah. And when all of a sudden we started collecting North Korean missiles that they were testing, it was all made in the USA stuff. It was like kind of like a scene in Iron Man where Tony Stark finds out that the bad guys have got all of his weapons, for crying out loud. Anyway, provide American aid to all nations, regardless of communist domination. We've been doing that for a long, long time. Allow all Soviet satellites, individual representation in the United Nations. Again, this is going back in time. Promote the United Nations as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one world government with its own independent armed forces. Yep, they've wanted that for some time. Resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. Capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. Quite frankly, I think they've got their fingers in both of them. Get control of schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Well, this is happening. Get control of teachers' associations. Put the party line in textbooks. Gain control of student newspapers. Use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Infiltrate the press. Get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, and policy-making positions. Gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings, substitute shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms. That's par for the course now, my friends. That's been going on for some time. Control art critics and directors of art museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. Again, why that? Communist societies, they don't like too much creativity. And again, let's be honest. Come on. Best art ever. It's all inspired by God, for crying out loud. You ever been to Italy? Anyway, eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. Break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. I want to remind everybody, okay, this is going to the way, way back machine, for crying out loud. 1958, all right? Long time ago. Then it was read into Congress, 1963. Present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Discredit the Bible and emphasize a need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. Eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. Discredit the Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs. Discredit the American founding fathers. For crying out loud, we've been ripping down statues. Yeah. Mom Dummy wants to get rid of the Columbus statue in New York City. I'm not kidding. DeSantis said, hey, we'll take it. Bring it down here to Florida. Belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teachings of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the big picture. Give more emphasis to Russian history. Support any social movement to give centralized control over any parts of the culture, education, social agency, welfare programs, etc. What else? Infiltrate, gain control of unions, infiltrate, gain control of big business. I'm going to go on and on. I mean, you can look this stuff up yourself, But we're there, kids. We've been there. Road to serfdom, highway to hell. We've been on this path for some time. Okay. The bottom line is this. A lot of these young people that are upset, that are finding this attractive, they're saying, well, wait a second. Why do all the, why do all the big money people, why are they allowed to get away with everything? Why is there never any repercussions for their actions? I want to go back to the Great Recession, for crying out loud. Some of the biggest crooks from Lehman Brothers lived not far from me on Long Island for a period of time. Nothing happened to anybody. Eventually, you want a little bit of justice. What we're getting right now is the wrong remedy. I explained it to my daughter yesterday. I said, it's kind of like, she's doing the medical field when she's studying in college. Like, it's kind of like if you have a problem, a sickness, whatever it may be, and you start taking the wrong pill or the wrong treatment to remedy it. That's what we got. We've got our problems. Okay. We've most certainly got a lot of socialism, communism, if you will, for the wealthy here, the elites in this country. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we need to get rid of that. Something I've been banging the drums for a very long period of time. Allowing the whole country to go in that direction, things are not going to get better, my friends. WatchDog on WallStreet.com.